Honorable members, the Honorable First Vice President,
Donc, on observe une minute de silence.
We will have 1 minute for prayer or meditation.
Je vous invite à prendre place.
Please be seated.
Qu'est-ce qu'on doit faire? Le message du président.
Juste pour saluer.
صباح الخير إخوتي الكرام.
Good morning, dear brothers and sisters, dear colleagues. I should like to first apologize on behalf of the President of the Pan-African Parliament for his delay, but he will be joining us shortly. Before we begin our proceedings, on your behalf, I should like to say condolences to our brother from Uganda who lost his brother today. On your behalf, sincere condolences to our brother Patrick. I should like to call Mr. Lovoyo Dimeni, call upon Lovoyo Dimeni, Director of who is invited to enter the chamber. Apparently, the gentleman is not in the chamber as yet, and since we have time constraints, we will begin our proceedings, and I would like to ask the clerk to read to us the first item on the agenda. Madam Clerk, you have the floor.
The first order of the day is presentation and adoption of the final resolutions and recommendations of this session.
إذن فلنواصل أعمالنا التي بدأنا.
We will resume what we started yesterday on the adoption of recommendations for this session. I would like to ask the clerk to begin with the recommendations. We finished resolutions yesterday, and I'm going to ask the clerk to read the recommendations for this session. Thank you.
الآن أطلب من الأمين العام أن تبدأ.
I should like to ask the clerk to read. Where we stopped yesterday. Actually, we did not finish the adoption of resolutions yesterday, so we will begin with the resolutions, starting where we left off yesterday.
Honorable President, the next resolution is resolution number 9, resolution on the advocacy for ratification and domestication of Malabo Protocol and other African Union legal instruments. After a number of preambular paragraphs, the Pan-African Parliament now hereby resolves to 1. Initiate advocacy missions in other member states of the African Union that have not yet ratified the Malabo Protocol to raise awareness of the importance of the protocol and to encourage its signature and ratification as soon as possible. 2. Approve the request made by the West Africa Regional Caucus to undertake advocacy missions to Liberia, Nigeria, and Senegal, which are yet to ratify the protocol to the Constitutive Act of the African Union relating to the Pan-African Parliament, so as to lobby the authorities of these countries for its signature and ratification. 3. Identify a certain number of specific legal instruments of the African Union to be promoted for signature and ratification by its members in their respective countries. 4. Increase parliamentary advocacy and engagement for the ratification, domestication, and implementation of all African Union legal instruments. 5. Encourage PAP members to be proactive in taking initiatives to question their executive on the state of signature and ratification of African Union legal instruments. And 6, call upon its members to report to their respective regional caucus on the status of signature and ratification of the protocol to the Constitutive Act of the African Union related to the Pan-African Parliament, and each caucus chairperson should present the status of ratification to the PAP plenary at every ordinary session. This ends the resolution, Honorable President.
شكرا سيدة الأمين العام. الآن
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We will now open the floor. Professor from Kenya, you have the floor.
أستاذ لكم الكلمة.
Thank you.
The professor from Kenya, you have the floor.
At how maybe the Secretariat can improve the text, and I'm looking at paragraph 4. Increase parliamentary advocacy and engagement for the ratification, domestication, and implementation of all African Union legal instruments. and then you leave it there. I think it would have been better if you listed all the African Union legal instruments so that we are able to tick the countries that have been able to do that, and then we are able to follow. In fact, that would make it easier even to implement paragraph 5 and 6 so that all of us know which instruments we are dealing with and the various countries know which ones they need to deal with, the ones that they haven't dealt with. I submit, Mr. President.
Madam President.
شكرا لكم سيد النائب الموقر.
Thank you very much, Honorable Parliamentarian. Are there any further observations or comments? You have the floor. Dear brother, you have the floor. Siddiq Sadeh from Burundi. It's on paragraph 2. Maybe there is a translation problem in French. This is a correction in the French language only. Correction in the French language only. In the English version, it mentions advocacy for the protocol to be signed. And in the French version, it says to put pressure on authorities. Paragraph 5. Here also, I think it's a problem of translation. It says to interrogate the executive. The term is not adequate. Maybe we should rather say in the French language to inform authorities. Thank you very much. We will ask the clerk to take note of recommendations made by parliamentarians. Any other comments? If none, yes? Yes, the professor, you have the floor.
Want to support the recommendations that have been given, but I wanted an additional recommendation that would take care of the other caucuses. As I moved yesterday in my motion, there is need to balance the caucuses. We want to congratulate the Western Caucus because they have already gotten a clear agenda of where they are going, and they are even moving in para 2. So can we have one that brings in the other caucuses? I know there is one that calls upon the caucus chairs to give the status, but we need to have a paragraph that asks all the other caucuses to take stock, the caucuses themselves, not the caucus chairs, the caucuses take stock so that we can go and develop our own programs and submit the same for support from PAP. Thank you.
شكرا لكم زملائي الأعزاء.
Thank you very much, dear colleagues, for your contributions and guidelines. Yes, go ahead. Thank you, Madam Chair. We need to get in touch with the African Union. The relationship between the Pan-African Parliament and the African Union needs to change in order not to waste our resources. When we came here, we wanted to change things, but to consider the Pan-African Parliament as a consultative institution is not fair. Our countries spend a lot of money so that we can bring change. We need to change our status, and the Pan-African Parliament should have a much more active role. Thank you very much, dear brother. Yes, that is what we are trying to do our best so that our institution is not only a consultative institution and becomes an organ that has full powers. But that necessitates the ratification of the Malabo Protocol. For the moment, we only have 18 ratifications. We would like to ask all parliamentarians to do all they can do to domesticate this protocol in their respective countries. No more comments? The gentleman from Burundi has the floor. No, I don't think we should leave this paragraph 4. This is a typo in the French version only. This is a correction in the French version of the document. Capital letter instead of small letter. Thank you very much, Honourable Parliamentarian, for this comment. Is there another comment? Yes? You have the floor, my brother.
Paragraph 6, which calls upon its members to report to their respective regional caucuses on the status. I cannot understand that paragraph. I don't know what they mean. Maybe we need a clarification on that. I really don't know what they want us to do here. If there can be a clarification on that.
شكرا لكم سيد النائب الموقر.
Thank you very much, Honourable Parliamentarian. In fact, what is asked of parliamentarians is to cooperate with their caucuses in order to domesticate the Malabo Protocol. Governments must also collaborate with the Pan-African Parliament to attain the same objective. Yes, madam, you have the floor. Paragraph 6, I think the sentence should be redrafted. This is a change of term in the French version. And in the last night, present the status of ratification to the PAP plenary at every ordinary session. Thank you very much. I hope that the clerk has taken note of this redrafting proposal. Yes, you have the floor.
Días. Señora Presidente, yo aquí en este...
I would like to change something here in what is being presented. But what I would like to ask is, as my colleague just said, we come here to do a really good job with our different countries, and we want to go back that knowing that the work that we do is of absolute importance. But also, I would like to say that the importance of the ratification of all the protocols that we have are of utmost importance for this Pan-African Parliament. For example, the Malabo Protocol. There is huge responsibility with this protocol with regard to the PAP. And for 10 years now, up until now, we don't have even a minimum of countries. We don't even have an official list of countries that have ratified this protocol or those that haven't ratified it. So that when we go back to our countries and when we come back to the next session, that they bring us news that it's been possible for this protocol to be ratified and come into effect. Thank you very much.
شكرا لكم سيد النائب على التوضيح.
Thank you very much, Honourable Parliamentarian, for this proposal and clarification. Madame Mariam from Côte d'Ivoire. Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I recognize the importance of the ratification of the Malabo Protocol, but I'm asking myself if we are using the right method. If states have not yet ratified the Malabo Protocol, it means that there are reservations. Do we know what reservations they are? And when we find out what they are, what response will we have? Once the caucuses do advocacy, we will get a result. Otherwise, we will go back to square one. Thank you.
شكرا لكم سيد السيناتور.
Thank you. Yes, countries that have not yet ratified the Malabo Protocol certainly do have reservations, and these reservations have to be known. Once you go back to your respective countries, you need to find out why countries have not ratified the Malabo Protocol, so that we have the right number of ratifications so that our organ becomes an organ with full powers. I believe that all contributions have been relevant. We heard proposals concerning the draft of the document. Parliamentarian from Tunisia. Thank you, Madam Chair. Tunisia greets all our brothers and sisters. Madam Chair, I would like to respond to the water issue. It is a very grave problem in Africa. We need to focus on water and education during the next session, because it is through education that the populations can go forward. We cannot rely on the West. The African continent has a very young population. We have debated on issues concerning women and education, but in a very limited manner. So during the next sessions, I should like to suggest that we focus on these problems that are so prevalent in Africa, because we have many laws on women and education, and these laws have to be implemented. Thank you. We will take that into consideration during our next sessions. Madam Amina from Chad. Thank you, Madam Chair. Once again, I should like to make a comment on the ratification of the Protocol of Malabo. The day before yesterday, I had suggested that PAP sets up a committee for advocacy to member states who have not yet ratified the Malabo Protocol. Each time we come here, we discuss this, and we are still a consultative organ. And as Mariam from Côte d'Ivoire has reminded us, even here, honourable parliamentarians from South Africa said that South Africa was not able to ratify the Malabo Protocol, and she gave the reason why South Africa did not ratify. Are we going to continue with the advocacy when we don't have full powers? Even if each year we get one or two more countries to ratify, that will be progress. Otherwise, we have no positive result. results. I suggest that PAP sets up a committee whose job it will be to do advocacy and adopt strategies to urge member states to ratify the Malabo Protocol. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Parliamentarian, for this clarification concerning South Africa and concerning what we need to do in future to increase the number of countries that will ratify the Malabo Protocol. We will now submit this resolution for adoption. I should like to ask parliamentarians to adopt the resolution. Please raise your hand. Thank you. The resolution on the advocacy for ratification and domestication of Malabo Protocol is adopted. We now go to the next resolution, and I should like to ask the clerk to read resolution number 10, please. Thank you.
Honorable President, draft resolution number 10 is the resolution on funding of the regional caucuses of the Pan-African Parliament. After a few preambular paragraphs, the Pan-African Parliament now therefore, 1, underscores that regional caucuses are vital institutional structures of the Pan-African Parliament and as such deserve to request and where possible receive institutional support and funding for their programs and activities. 2, determines that the Parliament shall provide institutional support and funding to the regional caucuses equitably, taking into account the available budget of the Parliament and the program planning formulated by the regional caucuses. 3, mandates the Committee on Finance and Monetary Affairs when allocating funding to the organs and structures of the Parliament to give due consideration to the plans and programs of the regional caucuses. 4, requests the Bureau to ensure at all times equitable funding for all regional caucuses to be able to fulfill their functions and contribute to the achievement of the mandate of the Pan-African Parliament. 5, encourages the regional caucuses to seek, under the guidance and leave of the Bureau, additional support from the governments or parliaments of their respective regions in terms of hosting and other facilities in support or supplementation of the PAP institutional support. 6, urges the regional caucuses to continue taking sensitization initiatives and spearheading advocacy programs at the regional level, including on ratification of the PAP Malabo Protocol, and report at each PAP session, particularly on progress recorded on the ratification of the PAP Malabo Protocol within their region. This ends the draft resolution, Honorable President.
شكرا لكم سيدة الأمينة العامة. أرى أن هذا
Thank you, Madam Clerk, for this resolution. This resolution has been sufficiently discussed, But if there's anyone who would like to take the floor, we could listen to their comments. Would anyone like to take the floor? Amina?
Au financement régional n'est pas numéroté. Et si elle a dit en anglais, c'est le numéro 10.
What she said in English, was it resolution number 9 or number 10? For the French version, what we just ended is resolution number 8. So for the caucus, we didn't quite take note. Should it be resolution number 9? From what she read, is resolution number 10.
نعم السيدة النائب الموقرة، ما قلتهم مؤكد بأن
Honorable Member of Parliament, as a matter of fact, this resolution is not numbered even in the Arabic version. That's why we're asking the clerk to make the necessary corrections and give us a figure for each resolution. Is there anyone else seeking the floor?
إذا كان ليس لدينا متدخل فسأطلب منكم اعتماد المقرر.
So, in the absence of any further comments, I call for the adoption of this resolution. So, the resolution is adopted.
Maybe you can reverse the adoption and...
You may proceed. You may proceed. Perhaps we could just take into consideration this before adoption. Thank you, Madam Chair. So, I would like us to come back to paragraph 3.
Is that the budget allocation will be equal across all the caucuses. But if you go to paragraph 3, there is an addition there where it's talking about giving due consideration to the plans and programs of the regional caucuses. I don't know what this means when in all these paragraphs we are talking about equitably allocating these resources, and then here we are saying that in allocating funding to the organs of the structures of parliament, we must give due consideration to the plans and programs of the regional caucuses. I see a variation here to what we've been saying in other paragraphs in terms of allocating resources equitably. Would we have an explanation as to what this means?
شكرا لكم سيد النائب الموقر.
Thank you, Honorable Member of Parliament. So, you are seeking equitable distribution of the resources to be consistent with the program. So, we are calling on the Secretariat to recast paragraph 3 for this sentence to be, for this paragraph to be clear. And the current nature of the paragraph is not quite clear, so we'd like to call on the Secretariat to ensure that the paragraph is clearer.
In budgeting, we need to be very careful if you want to do equitable. Simply because the caucuses numbers are not the same.
ليست لدي الترجمة. Vous attendez un peu. ترجمة بالعربية وبالفرنسية. نعم تصل. واصلوا.
Okay. Now what I'm saying is, like, in terms of equitability in budgets, you may be very careful in doing that, because what happens is the programs that a particular caucus wants to do may not be the same with another caucus, and the cost will not be the same. So I think for me, we just trust the Committee on Monetary Affairs to ensure that we have budget for the programs of each caucus so that they can be done. Because the cost cannot be the same. For example, in West Africa, we have 15 countries. So if I want to do a mission, for example, of course, that will be more expensive compared to the caucus from the north. So I think what is important is we trust the Secretariat, we trust the Monetary Affairs, just to ensure that we have budget for the implementation of the programs of each of the caucuses. I think that's more important. Thank you.
شكرا لكم سيد النائب على التوضيح المفيد. إذن ننتقل.
Thank you, Honorable Member, for this clarification. Eswatini, you have the floor.
Good morning, and thank you for giving me the floor. I want to echo, actually, Honorable Mbo from the Gambia has said what I wanted to say, but just to expand on that, being a rapporteur or the Finance Committee, how we do it during budget period is that each regional caucus chairperson brings objectives of that committee for that particular period of time, what the committee wants to achieve, or sorry, that caucus wants to achieve for that 12-month period, clearly detailing, the strategies and how they want to implement, and then they allocate the cost. So I want to concur with Honorable Mbo that it will be very difficult to evenly or equitably have same figures for all regional caucuses. Yes, because of size, but also the programs might be different. So I think we need to keep that in record so that we don't capture it incorrectly, and it's not going to be. Then it becomes impossible to implement on the finance committee by the finance committee. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. We'll give the floor to the Gambia.
I think, apart from what the two have said, I think the word that he's using, which is equitable, is apt. Equitability is not the same as equality. We are not saying equal, we are saying equitable. I think by looking at each program and then costing it based on that program is equitable. So it's not equal. So I think we are in order.
نعم وصلت الفكرة إخوتي الكرام وأطلب من الأمين العام أن تأخذ بعين الاعتبار.
So yes, the Secretary General would take into consideration all these proposals. So it's not a matter of equality, but it's according to the needs of each of the caucuses. And so there should be a plan, and that is quite clear. The Secretariat will take into consideration all of this when they are recasting this paragraph. So, sir, you have the floor.
Madame la Présidente de séance, je pense qu'il faut qu'on avance.
I believe that for us to move ahead, we should first of all know that today the caucuses are not funded. If we have the same amount at the beginning, that could be fine. So I believe that we'll improve as time goes on, but we should leave the text as it is, just as it is drafted, and let's move ahead. If tomorrow we have more funding, then we'd have to reflect on it, on the funding of the different programs, for the caucuses. But as of today, there's no money for that program. Thank you.
Madame Gabala, vous avez demandé la parole?
Oui.
Madame Gaba, did you seek the floor? Now you have the floor, you may proceed. Madam Chair, I would simply like to draw the attention of this August Assembly to the fact that we're the people's representatives and we should have equity in what we're doing. First of all, we don't have any budget. So why should we have a mini budget which will not enable any caucus to function? We should have a budget based on programs. I would like to remind you that in the entire African Union, and even in the Pan-African Parliament, we should carry out activities which will yield results. So we should look at that aspect and introduce the notion of equity in the funding of the different caucuses. Thank you, Madam Chair.
شكرا لكم سيدة قبلة على
Thank you, Madam Gabala, for this important presentation. Now, we'll give the floor to, I don't know his name, our brother, please. I would first of all like to call on our brother to kindly today is Friday, and some of the parliamentarians, I would like you to insist on only what is important. You should be quite precise and go straight to the point so that we can end our work early, and as Muslims, so that we'll be able to go for prayers, the Friday prayers. You have the floor. Dear brother, you have the floor.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for giving me the floor. I'm Honorable Sain Ali from Djibouti. I would like to contribute to what is being said. At the level of funding of our work in the different caucuses, there are several opportunities available to seek funding. As done in the African Union, we also work with partners. Partnership is a very important link and a source of funding. So, we should establish a committee or a subcommittee which will work with the caucuses to find a solution at the level of funding through external partnerships who could fund our work in the caucuses. There is a solution. We try to work with another committee. That's our cooperation committee. We don't have sufficient money to carry out our work in the Cooperation Committee 2018. So try to seek funding to fund some of our external missions out of the continent. So I would say it is possible if the caucuses could establish subcommittees, and this is just a personal opinion, they could work with partners and they could seek funding from our partners. Thank you.
شكرا لكم الموقرة حسين على المقترحات المفيدة وسنعمل عليها إن شاء الله.
Debating, Madam President.
We'll take all of this into consideration. Thank you. Now, we'll give the floor to we'll move on to recommendations. Professor Gali, you have the floor. Madam Clerk, next recommendation.
عفوا يبدو أن هنالك لا
Sorry. Are there any other resolutions? According to the document before me, we've come to the end of resolutions. But some members have pointed out that the resolutions are not numbered, and apparently there are 2 resolutions yet to be considered.
الآن سأطلب من الأمينة العامة قراءة القانون.
I would like to call on the clerk to read the resolutions.
Honorable President, with your permission, the Secretariat would like to introduce an amendment into the title of Draft Resolution 11, which may not have been harmonized in all drafts. Draft resolution reads as follows. Resolution on the outcomes of the 14th PAP Conference on Women's Rights. After a few preambular paragraphs, the Pan-African Parliament now hereby resolves to 1. Urge Pan-African parliamentarians to call upon their respective governments, where applicable, to speed up the process of signing, ratifying, and implementing the mechanisms for the domestication of the Maputo Protocol, and to advocate for its universal ratification and effective implementation. 2, undertake parliamentary advocacy and partnership building to increase gender-responsive national budgets and to promote strategic investments in both the public and private sectors to achieve gender equality and equity. 3, engage with national parliaments and governments to support women in politics and to make or amend their laws to strengthen women's political participation in order to guarantee equal participation between women and men in decision-making process and to create a conducive environment for women to effectively take part in political, social, economic, and cultural life. 4, also engage member states to provide adequate support to women in politics, including by establishing or availing the necessary funds and training to female candidates. 5, work with national parliaments to set up mechanisms to follow up on PAP resolutions and recommendations, but also generally to develop a monitoring framework for domestication of African Union human rights and governance instruments pertaining to women and gender equality. 6, work towards the establishment of a Pan-African Observatory on Women in Politics for the monitoring and implementation of an index to measure the level of compliance with legal and policy standards advancing women's rights by rewarding through a prize the best performers. 7, undertake parliamentary diplomacy for the lifting of political and economic sanctions imposed on countries, on African countries, owing to their devastating effects on the innocent populations, particularly women and children. 8, engage with parliaments of countries in transition, particularly those in the Sahel, to play an effective role in assisting their countries to restore to democratic governance with a view to accelerate the lifting of sanctions by the African Union. 9, devote the 15th Pan-African Parliament Conference on Women's Rights on the theme of, quote, violence against women in politics, close quote, in order to take stock of the issues and question the main strategies relating to gender equality and equity in the political arena, especially in the unprecedented number of countries that will hold elections in 2024. 10, mandate PAP members to ensure that their respective parliaments organize the celebration of the, quote, 16 days of activism, close quote, against gender-based violence on the 25th November 2024 and 10 December 2024 to amplify the voices and struggles of parliamentarians against gender-based violence. This is the end of the draft resolution, Honorable President.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk, and good morning, at least for me. I'm just coming in. Any comments? The Gambia.
Sure.
Also, there are two Gambia. So the blue can start, and then the red can follow.
Yes, just, I don't know what happened, but Resolution 11, what we have here, is repeating Resolution 10, the caption. The caption. I think it's a mistake. The ones we have here is resolution on funding instead of what she has just read. So maybe,
sorry, can you come again? It's not clear.
I'm saying the name of the resolution.
The name of the resolution.
In 11 that we have now is not the name of the resolution she has mentioned. Yes. It's amended.
So do you agree?
I read in the maybe the member didn't hear and indicated that there's a
To what? The outcomes. Okay, I'm being advised, Honorable Member. Thank you for your observation. Thank you for that observation. The clerk is advising me that in fact when she read the resolution, she did indicate that there was already an amendment, and now it reads resolution on the outcomes of the 14th Parliamentary Conference on Women's Rights. So it has been amended. Thank you. The Gambia.
Thank you. Mr. President, resolution number 3. It says to engage with national parliaments and governments. Whenever we say...
Sorry? The last resolution. The last resolution. Then we go to recommendation.
Mr. Speaker.
But I don't have a document. Okay, proceed.
Thank you. Whenever we say equal, it takes us back, because that is when men would fight, because they don't want equality. I would rather we use to guarantee parity. That is more positive and will be more welcoming to the men, I think. Thank you.
Right, you are saying we move from the usual use of equality to parity. Honorable Barakat. But on that point, let's finalize this issue of whether parity or equality. Then we go to other comments.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. President, we do not have the same information with regard to the recommendations distributed yesterday, the resolutions rather, which were distributed yesterday. There were 10 in number. That's for those which were distributed yesterday. Today, there seems to be an 11th or 12th resolution. So my neighbor has 12 resolutions, but she doesn't have the 11th resolution, and I don't have either of them. So perhaps we could distribute, we could discuss so that we have the same level of information.
Yeah, maybe let's work on that one. Can those with 12 resolutions just raise their hand? 12, those with 12 resolutions. Those with 11, or those with 10. 10. So there is an issue here. Which one is correct? Which one is the correct document? Thank you. Order in the chamber. I'm being advised that it is correct that last night we had a document with 10 resolutions. But because the work on the resolution was going on, 2 more were added after we adjourned. And that document with 12, we could have picked it by the entrance. So everyone should have 12. Or you passed, you did not realize there was a document for you. That's the advice I'm being given. That the one with 12, yeah, so what we can do is our ushers, I'm doing attention of the ushers, and those 2 are just walking over there. Are you listening? Ushers, can you collect documents outside? And then those with the documents that have 10 can raise up their hand and get the proper one with 10, with 12 resolutions. That will be the solution. So bring in the ushers. Can you bring the documents from the entrance on the resolutions in all languages? Yes, I see. Yeah, it's here. I want to go behind that side. Some faces don't come out clearly. So whoever is right at the back, I give you the opportunity, then we move to the front. I see hands over there. The floor is yours. Oh, so I give you Mariam. Honorable Mariam, you can go proceed.
Non, Monsieur le Président.
Mr. President, I just want to say that this morning we're given resolution number 12, but not resolution number 11. And I believe it's a majority of us.
Okay, can we all confirm that resolution number 11 is missing? No, just, PAP should always show the outside world that we are very organized. So just raise up your hand. No, don't even open your mouth. First is hand, then mouth. Honorable Tukis.
Thank you, Honorable President. We have a document that goes up to 11 resolutions. The 11th one is the one that the clerk corrected to include, because it speaks of women, the results of the seminar. And then resolution 12, we were given in the morning, and it's the one that speaks on drug and substance abuse. I duly submit.
So, I think it's now clear for everybody. Madam Clerk, you can come again. So, Thank you. I think everything is now clear, but if anyone has some issue to raise, Honorable Mkatana.
Mr. President, thank you for the floor. I'm looking at paragraph 7 of the current resolution we are discussing, which is resolution 11. In that paragraph, it says, undertake parliamentary diplomacy for the lifting of political and economic sanctions imposed on countries in Africa, on African countries. There's a typo there. Owing to their devastating effects on the innocent populations, particularly women and children.
Sorry,
now, in the past,
sorry, I'm a bit lost myself.
Mr.
You
President,
on which one?
Mr. President, we are on paragraph 7, resolution 11.
You said 7, eh?
Page 31.
Page 31.
Of the
Yes,
document.
I'm on page 31, and this what
on
resolution?
7. On 7.
Number 7.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, Your Excellency. So, in the past, here in PAP, we have spoken about Zimbabwe. But here, the resolution seems to be speaking about African countries. So maybe it would help improve the document by listing out which countries exactly we are dealing with so that we can be targeted in terms of this parliamentary diplomacy we are discussing. I submit, Mr. President.
Yes, correct. He's saying let's be specific which countries are affected. Let's name the countries like we did yesterday in some other paragraphs. I think that's correct, and we proceed accordingly. Any other issue to be raised, Honorable Tuki? Okay.
Thank you, Honorable President. If I remember well, there was my sister from Gambia spoke of substituting equal with parity. We had not finished discussing paragraph 3. I hereby submit, Honorable President.
Yeah, correct. We diverted into other issues. And the issue of parity, which is number 3, eh? Yes. Thanks. No, the procedure is that you don't just raise yourself up. And I'll punish you for that. I'll come back after others. Because we want to instill discipline in this parliament. There is no need to stand up and protest. No. Just raise your hand. Our hands in the chamber, they speak. When you're in the chamber, you can speak. Oh, there's nobody anyway, you are lucky. Oh, no, there's a hand over there.
Obrigado, Chivukuvuku, Angola.
Thank you, Honorable President. If I'm out of bounds, apologies. I have a concern. We had a colleague named Mohamed Bazoum, who is currently detained, unconstitutionally detained by the military, and this room never stated anything on this colleague. That's my concern, Honorable President.
I stand to be advised. I just want to, for those that may not know about Honorable Bazoum. Honorable Bazoum won elections as president of Niger, I think 2 years ago or so. And then there was a military coup. So he has been in detention since then. Can't remember when that coup took place last year. Can't remember the month. But I also want to say, Honorable Bazoum used to be a member of Pan-African Parliament. And I was here, he used to sit in this column, somewhere there. Very, very vibrant and active MP. So the concern is, why is it that PAP is just been silent on this, that he's been in detention since then, and PAP has not said a word. The proper procedure would have been Honorable Chibuku could have raised a motion prior to this stage, and then we would have debated that motion. Now, for us to go back to that motion, then would be, of course, a breach of procedure. But democracy sometimes can say, let's make a statement. It's up to you if you think, but it cannot be a debate. It can just be a statement. And what I will encourage the Honorable Chief who could be to write or be assisted to write a resolution. Maybe the best you can do is to read it to members. If members agree that although you had not brought up a proper motion, but because of the agency, we agree to adopt it, it remains up to the chamber. But you need to organize something in writing quickly and read it to members. Otherwise, we do not have that resolution already on paper. Sorry. You said we have read. Thank you. I'm being reminded, Honorable Chibukuku. Honorable Chibukuku, are you there? Yes, I'm being reminded that following this coup, the president of PAP, in that case it was myself, I issued a communique to condemn that coup and calling for the reversal of the political situation and reinstate the democratically elected president and the government. That we did. But you are right that even since then, President Bazoum is in detention, even today. So what we did last year may need to be updated, if you like. But can you write something and then we ask the members if they can endorse or otherwise?
Can the Secretariat write something and we sign it?
Honorable Chibuku, my advice is you go to the Secretariat, and I know you will say who. I think in this case, I will ask Gali, go meet the honorable member, advise how and who can do it, advise how we can proceed. Thank you. So, oh yes, Honorable Yusuf, Libya.
Bismillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Good day, dear colleagues. Thank you very much, Honorable President, for giving me the opportunity to take the floor. There are a few points that I wanted to raise. The Arabic version of the document does not reflect what we have heard at all. There seems to be a complete disparity between the Arabic version and the English version, and so we need to have coherence between the English and the other language versions. And based on what I heard by the clerk, there is something very important where the MPs have a very important role to play, and that is with regards to the Palestinian question, what is happening in Gaza. We need to take a strong position on what is happening in Palestine, and the recommendations must make reference to that.
On this document on equality and parity of women. And I think let's conclude that part. If you have another issue, it can come at the appropriate time. So let's conclude and resolve on this parity or equality. What do we say? Parity? There's a yes on parity. Any no? There is a no on parity. Honorable Stuki, at least I respect you. You are raising up your hand.
Thank you, Honorable President. I think let us look at the definitions of these two words. Parity, the dictionary meaning is the state or condition of being equal, especially as regards status or pay. Then let us look at equal.
As you look, Honorable Stuki is a top lawyer. So the lawyer is advising us.
Then equal, a component, division, section, or segment of a whole that is the same. So it means we are the same. What is the difference between parity and equal? Aren't they synonyms? I submit, Honorable President.
Any contribution, so we move? I'm not giving a ruling, but it helps sometimes to use terms that are internationally accepted. So that when you use a term, everybody understands that this equality means. And in most documents to do with women and men, the way the equality is used, not parity. So my advice would be, if parity and equality mean the same, which is what came out from the dictionary, why not go for equality? Because that's what we get. CEDAW, what's it called? CEDAW. Convention on the what? It's a convention on what? Against discrimination. Help me.
All forms of discrimination.
Yeah, I want to go through it. Women, what does it say? It says the convention, is it against? It's CEDAW.
Yes.
It's convention, let's go.
Is the UN convention?
It's convention on or against?
All forms of discrimination against women.
Discrimination against women.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is, if the word equal is the one used internationally, why don't we use equal? Yes, the Gambia.
Thank you, Honorable President. Honorable President, if we read the paragraph is only referring to participation, guarantee participation between men and women in decision making. And the aspiration of the activists is equal. And that is the aspiration. And that's why, whether we attain it or not, we should always put the aspiration there. The aspiration is equal participation between men and women. That is the reason why we should maintain equal there. Thank you.
Honorable Mgatan.
Mr. President, I just wanted to support your ruling. The word parity normally is used when the ladies or the fairer gender is fighting for equal pay. Like, for example, when we are talking about actors and actresses, you'll find when they are raising issues about gender parity, they are talking about the men not being favored in terms of pay. Same for football, basketball, and these sports. So parity is more on the side of status, of pay and salary, but equality is the standard word that we should use. So I support the honorable member who has just spoken and what the president has said. And we could probably make progress to the next resolution. I submit, Your Excellency.
We're a bit confused. Because now we're going
To the drugs.
to the drugs, but we're not going to this document. I call upon the clerk to lead us on resolution 12. Oh, sorry. The way we ended the debate, it's like we have adopted anyway. Can we adopt, agreed and adopted? Resolution 11 adopted. Resolution 12.
Honorable President, draft resolution number 12 is the resolution on drug and substance abuse as an impediment to inclusive, lifelong, quality and relevant learning in Africa. After a number of preambular clauses, the Pan-African Parliament now hereby resolves to 1. Vehemently denounce the scourge of drug and substance abuse and illicit trafficking in and through Africa and its impact on inclusive, lifelong, quality, and relevant learning, especially for children and the youth. 2, advocate for the establishment and strengthening of national drug use epidemiology, sentinel surveillance systems in all African Union member states. 3, promote in the member states a balanced and integrated approach to drug control, providing a solid framework to address both supply and demand reduction, as well as ensuring availability of controlled substances for medical and scientific purposes. 4, mobilize through PAP national delegations, all national parliaments to ensure that the African government develop robust policies and support systems to address substance abuse among students, including the provision of adequate counseling services, rehabilitation centers, and educational programs, and discouragement of stigma and exclusion. 5, also work with national parliaments to ensure the adoption of effective legislations to address the scourge of drug and substance abuse and its impact on youth education and development. 6, mandate Pan-African parliamentarians to ensure that national budgets allocate sufficient resources for youth and community engagement in drug prevention programs and incorporation of educational, traditional, and religious institutions in drug use prevention, treatment, care initiatives. 7, request the Pan-African Parliament Youth Caucus to investigate the potential gaps in national legislations in relation to drug control and substance abuse and explore the possibility of model legal instruments to guide a harmonized drug control and substance in Africa. Request also the Pan-African Parliament Youth Caucus to remain seized of this matter for an in-depth investigation and consideration at the next session. This ends the draft resolution, Honorable President.
Honorable Mbo.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I think this is an excellent resolution. However, on the English version, we need to link number 4 and number 5. Because if you look at number 5, it just says also work with national parliaments to ensure the adoption of effective legislation. Who is that? Is it PAP or who is that? So there's a need to link 4 and 5 just to ensure that there is coherence in the wording. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? Gambia in blue.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I'm also going to 4, on line 4. Line 4, where is mentioning students. We are concerned about young people generally using drugs. So we can either say students and young people in general, or we just say young people, because it affects all the young people, not just students. Huh? Almost a quarter of our populations are not, young people are not going to school. So they are also into these drugs. Thank you.
Thank you. I think noted. Any other? Sorry, Mariam, Barakat. Mariam, then Barakat.
Merci, Monsieur.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to go to paragraph 5, please. The drug phenomenon is multifaceted, and so we need to work in synergy, and therefore we need to work with national and regional parliaments. So I would like to add national and regional parliaments, please.
We did mention yesterday to the drafters that we as a parliament, in terms of the protocol, we are supposed to work with regional parliaments, regional economic groupings, national parliaments. So as much as possible, let's show that we are working with national parliaments and regional groupings. Any other? Honorable Jivukuvuku. Sorry, Barakat. Honorable Barakat, Honorable Jivukuvuku, followed then Honorable Munkatana.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. President. If we go to number 7, ask the Youth Caucus to investigate the potential gaps in national legislation. I think that since we are dealing with drugs here, it's a health issue, and even though it affects the youth, I think that it's important that the Committee for Health be included or consulted. We must find a way of bringing the Youth Caucus and the Health Committee together.
I think that is agreed. By the way, they should not be investigated. The Youth Caucus to investigate the position. That's not an investigation. No, it's to identify. Simply identify. Thank you. Honorable Chivukuvuku, Honorable Chivukuvuku, yes.
Mr. President.
Honorable President, if I remember well, the day we addressed this item, a colleague from a specific country recommended to have penalty measures against the traffickers, not only preventive measures to protect our youth, but also to punish those who traffic drugs. Thank you, Honorable President.
Is taken. Honorable Mugatana.
Mr. President, the drafters can also improve the text on paragraph 7 by capturing the idea that we need a model law. The the drafting is a bit loose because it's saying explore the possibility of a setting up of a model law. And yet, in the discussion yesterday, we were very clear that certain countries have weak laws, and we needed to have a law that is standardized. I think that was the discussion. So the drafters should capture what we were saying on the floor, in the plenary, by making it a bit more forceful so that the committee, and I remember that it was the youth committee that we were giving this responsibility. They can sit down, the youth caucus, but Honorable Barakat has said we should also include the health. It doesn't matter who runs with it, but let us have a model law that we can run with. I submit, Your Excellency.
Agreed. When you explore the possibility, they can come back and say it was not possible. So let's simply put it clearly that we are going to go in that direction. But I also want to make a comment on this model law thing. I think in future when we do model laws, so that we get, our model laws get more accepted, can we also do, first of all, review the laws that exist with regard to drug and substance abuse in several countries? It's a desk exercise. That's a desk, you can do it in your office, in a pub or wherever. So that when you present here, you need to tell us what exists in terms of legislation across the continent. What gaps have we identified? We can even be more specific, this country, so that when we market our document, our model law, we'll be saying we've identified that although there are laws, but these gaps exist. Any other contribution, Honorable Mbo?
Yes, thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I think it's important that we look at some of the existing laws in our countries and then share with the rest, particularly to create a model law. But I will also say this, Honorable President, that there's a need also for proper funding. You know, in fighting drugs in our borders, I think there's a need for us to have proper funding. And I think it's important that Parliament also support legislation on funding this, funding the fight. Because again, you cannot fight, law enforcement cannot actually do the fight without proper funding. And also in the rehab centers, some have rehab centers, but the centers actually are not properly equipped. And at the end of the day, you see people actually relapse going back to where they came from. So I think funding is also key to ensure that members of Parliament support proper funding for law enforcement agencies to ensure that they fight this menace.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I also remember the lady who was doing presentation here. She really talked about prevention is better than cure. And that is why we were supposed to adapt, that we are going to have counseling and sensitization in all our school so that we can talk to our children and make them aware about what is going to happen when they take drugs. Thank you.
Thank you. The chair of the Youth Caucus.
شكرا سيد الرئيس. أولا أعتذر على التأخير، فاتني الكثير من التوصيات لكن دخلت القاعة والحديث عن العرض الذي
With regards to the recommendations, I presented with the Honorable Aquino about substance abuse. And in terms of the model law, I'd like to support what my colleague has just said about the fact that we need to focus on prevention. And this comes before a model law. The model law is certainly a good thing. And we need to make sure that it is preceded by prevention activities because, as we said, it is better to prevent than to treat, and that was said in the presentation as well. We need to ensure that the youth have activities, that they have employment, education, etc., to prevent them from getting involved in drugs. We need to make sure that our youth are steered away from drugs and drug addiction. And these efforts are outside of model law. These are activities that we need to commit to. We need to create support for the youth within their families, in school, within society. And the leaders of all the different countries need to encourage and assist the youth in various different ways to make sure that they are not victims of drugs and drug abuse.
Thank you. That Honorable Sandra, I can.
Merci, Monsieur le.
Thank you, Honorable President. As regards number 8, requesting the youth of the Pan-African Parliament Youth Caucus to remain seized of this matter for in-depth investigation and consideration at the next ordinary session. This is just a proposal. Is the Pan-African Parliament able to set up an independent commission made up of experts on drugs, legal experts, doctors, investigators, various bodies that PAB can use to set up an independent commission in order to come up with a regulation or document on the situation of drugs, drug trafficking and abuse on the African continent. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Mario.
Merci.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, Honorable President. After several interventions, I'd like to propose that as regards paragraph 3, we can introduce a decision on prevention for our various states, because we say advocate the setting up of a system, then thereafter we talk about adopting a balanced approach. So I prefer that we insert between 2 and 3 a resolution that will focus on promoting prevention as discussed earlier. Thank you.
I cannot see any other interest to contribute on this one. Sorry. Anyone? Okay, yes. Proceed.
Thank you, President. On this issue, I think, the Honorable, you said Honorable Sandra, what you have said, but my thinking was right, like this issue of drug and substance abuse is not like just a health issue or a youth issue. It's actually a disaster for the African continent. That this parliament must formulate a special committee to deal with it, to actually sell out the seriousness the parliament have on this issue of drug and substance abuse. So my thinking was that we need to have a committee, a special committee that we give timelines to fight the issue of drug and substance abuse and give reports each and every time when PAP meets here. That was my proposal. Then before I sit down, because I see this side is too far from where you are, President, I wanted, while we debate on this issue of drug and substance abuse, the clerk must look into the issue of another resolution on climate change issues that we proposed yesterday that didn't come today. Maybe the paper is somewhere. Thank you.
Thank you. The issue of a special committee, you can even call it an ad hoc committee, That is led by Youth Caucus. Nobody is saying we take over the responsibility. The Youth Caucus will lead, but we bring in health and even other, and I was going to propose even spread it to regional caucuses. So that each regional caucus at least nominates a person from that each region who sits on this committee, so that each time we meet, even as caucuses, we discuss and undertake certain programs in our own regions in this committee. So I think the issue of forming a committee, it should be one of or part of our resolutions. That committee should be set up, the proper composition, and we lead as PAP the issue of drugs on the continent. I see there is an interest this side.
شكرا سيد الرئيس. كنت اقترحت سيد الرئيس تشجيع التوجه بتلقائية وعن طواعية إلى مراكز العلاج بالنسبة للدول التي
Arabic interpretation into French, into English, sorry.
There is not.
Sorry?
No English.
No English. No English.
Yeah.
We have Arabic now, Mr. President.
There is interpretation already. We have English interpretation.
Yeah.
Like French into English, there's no delay. It's like automatic, immediately there is English translation or any other language. So I just want to say the Arabic team, I think sometimes you relax too much. So you are then ambushed when someone, a member stands up to speak in Arabic. You are like facing somewhere on your phones. But this is what I've seen. The interpreters, Arabic interpreters for Arabic to English, you take too long. So sometimes they speak for more than almost a minute before anyone comes in. But later on you tell us, oh yeah, we are back. Please, can you do like other teams? Thank you. Continue.
شكرا سيد الرئيس. كنت اقترحت في مداخلتي التجديد أو
There's nothing.
Oh.
They are not yet back. Can you start again? Arabic into English.
Are you there? I can't speak.
Sorry?
I repeat?
No. Do we have the interpretation now?
Okay, yes, sorry. I'm taking Arabic into English now. Please proceed. Mr. President, I have submitted a proposal that is about tightening the penalties for those who are doing business in the drugs. And another proposal about the users, those who have to be treated in the centers. As for the states that have legislations penalizing the use, they have to direct or to allocate resources for treatment of the addicts. in order to, for those ones who are having some fears of being penalized for using these drugs. So it is better to find a way of providing the health services for those users instead of punishing them. And this is particularly for the young ones like students. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Can we say we have concluded? So I repeat, we have agreed and adopted. Can we adopt again? If properly guided, I believe now we are done with all the resolutions, except the comments and issues that arose, which I believe have been taken on board. We are done subject to the comments that have been made. Yes, proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. We need to be guided on way forward on the topic of climate change. Thank you. On the resolutions.
Yes, I can see that staff want to advise. The resolutions on climate change were adopted last year. We are now in the implementation phase. Okay, if that is sufficient, then we can move to recommendations. In my document is page 32. In the big document, page 32. So we invite the clerk to lead us.
Honorable President, there are 8 recommendations in total for this ordinary session. Recommendation number 1, the draft title is Recommendation on Open Quote, Educate an African Fit for the 21st Century, Building Resilient Education Systems for Increased Access to Inclusive, Lifelong, Quality and Relevant Learning in Africa. After the preamble, the Pan-African Parliament now therefore recommends as follows. To the African Union Commission, Department on Education, Science and Technology and Innovation, to 1, partner with the Pan-African Parliament, especially the Committee on Education, Tourism, Culture and Human Resources, the member states and other stakeholders to create awareness and advocate for sustained implementation of the Continental Education Strategy for Africa 2016 to 2025 and the education-related targets of the AU Agenda 2063 as well as Sustainable Development Goal 4. 2, launch and operationalize the African Education, Science and Technology Innovation Fund as a blended financing mechanism for education in Africa. 3, in collaboration with the member states, develop continental policy frameworks on teacher development, learning assessment, and higher education. 4, organize forums for peer-to-peer learning on teacher development, including the implementation of continental teacher awards. And 5, develop toolkits for improved STEM education and teaching standards and collaborate with member states to ensure their implementation at all levels. 2, to the African Union member states, to 1, own the vision and take measures to implement Continental Education Strategy for Africa 2016 to 2025, and the education-related targets of AU Agenda 2063, as well as Sustainable Development Goal 4. 2, place equity at the heart of education policy to ensure that all children and youth on the continent have access to quality education. 3, allocate adequate budgets comprising not less than 1% of GDP towards teacher recruitment and training, development of school infrastructure, acquisition of learning resources, and 4, enact policy and legislative frameworks to facilitate competency-based education and training. 3, to the national and regional parliaments of the AU member states to 1, harmonize their legal frameworks to position education as a tool for attaining all components of development. 2, allocate adequate national budgets comprising not less than 1% of GDP to financing education, science, technology, and innovation. 3, identify coordination mechanisms with ESTI department for regular exchange on ESTI programs and advocacy activities. 4, share experiences with other continents and countries on how parliaments could play a key role for promoting education. 5, assume greater responsibility towards sustainable funding and investment on ESTI in the continent. 6, support policies for strong intra-Africa cooperation and networking between parliamentarians, policymakers, scientists, journalists, and the private sector. And 7, support legislative actions for dynamic and sustainable research enterprise capable of translating scientific discoveries into products, services, and processes that are required for socio-economic development. 4, to regional economic communities to 1, promote alignment of regional education frameworks with CISA. 2, encourage regional thematic networking to share experiences and complementarities. 3, provide support to member states to monitor and report on implementation of CISA. And 4, sensitize member states and stakeholders on the CISA objectives and facilitate implementation. 5, to development partners, align support programs with CISA at continental, regional, and national levels. 2, participate in multi-sectoral committees for CISA and its various thematic clusters. 3, support capacity building and mutual learning among member states. And 4, support advocacy and communication around agreed priorities and commit more funding, coordinate across agencies, and explore innovative financing mechanisms towards education, science, technology, and innovation initiatives in Africa. Honorable President, this is the end of the draft recommendation.
Any debate, any comments? If none, yes, my honorable brother from the Gambia.
Yes, thank you very much, Honorable President. I still observe that, just like I did yesterday, relating to using our languages, especially in the area of technology. If we want our people to really be quick in mastering technology and science, we need to use our languages. So anyhow we can recommend, add that to their recommendations would be really appreciated. Because we've already accepted yesterday to put it in the resolutions, so we should endeavor to put it in the recommendations as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? I can see behind Senator Stuki. Behind you. Yeah, I cannot see properly from here. Behind Senator Stuki, Honorable Member.
Oh, thank you. I'm Honorable Sbongle Mamba from Eswatini.
Oh, sorry.
I have a problem with SASA. What is SASA?
Sorry, come again. You have a problem.
With number 4 and 5, the regional economic communities to SASA. I don't know what is SASA.
It's defined in the preamble.
Okay, it had been defined in the preamble. We moved straight to recommendation. Continental Education Strategy for Africa on page 32. In the preamble, it is properly indicated as to what it means. Thank you very much for that. If none, Honorable Jean-Marie Burundi.
Merci, Excellence.
Thank you, Honorable President, for giving the floor. I don't know if I'm correct, but I think that point number 1, the Department of Education, we have to take out the comma and say the Department of Education, Science, comma, Technology, comma, and so forth.
Honorable Dr. Bettin.
C'est juste au point 4.
That's point number 4. There is examination is faithful, as we did in our committees. Just under point 4.1, we strive to work, since we have to work in favor, and then point 5 and support the advocacy. So it has to be in block letters. That's the remark I have. Thank you.
Right. Sorry, I can see over there that Honorable.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm called Anatropia from Tanzania. Ningependa kuongelea vitu viwili.
I'd like to talk about 2 things. When you talk about continental strategy for Africa, we are supposed to have 2 components there. I have had some background on education, but it's by chance that I was educated, and today I am a teacher. One of the challenges that we have in the education in Africa, even if I ask many people here, you find yourself that you are doing a career on something that you did not learn about. So we need to have a component on career guidance so that children learn what they want, learn what they will do later in life. Sometimes we find ourselves doing things that we never anticipated to do. Sometimes you did education and later you end up being a lawyer. So we need to have a component on career guidance so that children are properly guided on what careers they will undertake in the future. Secondly, we need to have education which will enable us to value our Africa continent and to use our resources properly. If you look at Africa, we have a lot of resources, we have minerals, we have everything, but we are expecting companies from outside to come to exploit our resources. So our strategy should focus on 2 things. First of all, to be relevant to our context in Africa, and secondly, to learn things that are relevant to the careers that we'll undertake in the future.
Asante sana mbunge wa Tanzania.
Thank you very much, Member of Parliament from Tanzania. I know you very well.
The Gambia.
Thank you. Mr. President, I know I'm not a lawyer or number 3, it says in collaboration. How can it be 2 in collaboration? I think we need to look into that. It says to African Union Commission Department on Education, Science, Technology and Innovation, 2 in collaboration. I think we should need to look at that. And also, in support of what my honorable colleague,
research and innovation to ensure independence of research structures and the reliability and authenticity of their results. 2, promote the creation of faculties of traditional medicine in African universities, as is the case in South Africa, to ensure the development of traditional medicine. 3, facilitate the protection of traditional medicine practitioners' knowledge and guarantee their intellectual property rights. 4, encourage the integration of traditional medicine into the healthcare systems of member states and into national research and development policies. 5, improve the legislative and regulatory frameworks governing the practice of traditional medicine, including conditions for collaboration between traditional and conventional medicine, the protection of biodiversity, knowledge and expertise in traditional medicine, and the strengthening of control over practitioners, practices, and products derived from traditional medicine. This is the end of the recommendation. Yes.
Debate. I don't see any debate. Yes, the Gambia. The Gambia, the Gambia.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. For me, I know that in our country we have a law on this, but it's grossly inadequate. So when we are discussing this the other day, what came to mind was this parliament should come up with a model law that all other countries can look at and emulate. Because all the things that we are saying here, if we turn into a model law, it will be quite easy for all other countries to take that up on board and then come up with law on this thing and practice as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Mariam.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. There is an important aspect in the discussions that are not captured in the resolutions. African pharmacopoeia, which could be a source for economic growth for our states, and we had spoken about developing this pharmacopoeia. This African pharmacopoeia and developing our research capacity, as well as promoting the industrialization of medicines manufacturing based on African pharmacopoeia.
As we move to adoption, I have quick 2 comments. 1, why do we say work towards? Is towards increasing. You work towards increasing. Why don't we simply say increase the budget allocated? And then why number 4 say encourage? I want to say, why don't you say ensure the integration? Something more forceful. Thank you. Agreed? Adopted? The clerk.
Honorable President, The title of draft recommendation 4 is recommendation on the Gambian bill aimed at reversing ban on female genital mutilation. The Pan-African Parliament hereby recommends A, to the government of the Gambia to reaffirm commitment to the African human rights instruments and the Gambian constitution by maintaining the ban on FGM as provided for in the Women's Act of 2015, ensuring that this legislation is fully enforced and that any attempts to reverse this ban are firmly rejected. Implement extensive public awareness campaigns to educate communities about harmful effects of FGM on the health and well-being of women and girls, and to support the ban of FGM and other related harmful practices. And eliminate harmful social, cultural practices affecting the welfare, dignity, normal growth, and development of the child, as enshrined in Article 5B of the Maputo Protocol and Article 21(1) of the African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child. B, to the Parliament of the Gambia to 1, reject the proposed bill and maintain the current ban on FGM as provided for in the Women's Act of 2015, ensuring that this legislation is fully enforced and that any attempts to reverse the current regime. 2, carry out a robust oversight and regular monitoring and evaluation to track the progress of anti-FGM initiatives, as well as the measures taken and the impact of the initiatives taken to stop the proposed bill. This is the end of the recommendation, Honorable President.
I'm aware yesterday we had a robust, deep, wide debate on this one. So let's not go back to yesterday's debate. All those who contributed, no problem. I'll allow Honorable Mbo, but let's not get back to what we debated yesterday. And thank you, Honorable Mbo.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. It's not a debate, actually, just to look at the numbering. Because if you look at the recommendation to the government, it starts with 5, 6, 7. So that needs to change to 1, 2, 3. And the second one, also on the reaffirm, I suggested the UN Convention on the elimination of all forms of discrimination against women to be the first, because that's the International Bill of Rights. So that should come first, and then the AU, and then the others would follow. So we need to just change on the first one, and then that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. That is okay and agreed. So, the Gambia, the two Gambias. Proceed, the two Gambias.
Thank you. Mr. President, and also I would want you to add recommendations to the government of the Gambia, because they are the ones that should enforce rather than to put it on the assembly. Yes, we can enforce through oversight, but it is the government that should be forced to also enforce. So I would recommend to add 4, and reaffirm and encourage the government to enforce the laws, to fully enforce the laws, to fully enforce the laws on the FGM. I think we should recommend that to the government as well, to fully enforce, because we have seen people inciting and the government is not enforcing the law. So it is up to us to.
Yes, I think that one is pinpointed and okay. The Gambia.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. If you come to now, here's 2, where we say implementing. I think when the clerk was reading the 3rd line, where he says support, there is a 4 after support. In grammar, we remove the 4 and just maintain the ban. And then when you go to the Parliament of the Gambia, the first one, if we leave it as it is, then that means that the sentence is incomplete. But then in the third line, we can remove, it's fully enforced, and any attempts to reverse the current, then it will flow. Then we remove that there, the word that, before any. We can remove that. Thank you.
Are we done? Yes. Agreed. Next, Madam Clerk. Sorry, before you rise, I want to make a special request to members. We had thought by 10:30 we would be closing, or in the closing ceremony. We invited a few people, including from the AU, DECO came, they are around. So we have a request from a person that you all said, this person should have come from AU. So he says, I didn't come, but as part of the closing ceremony, we had invited him to give us a message. He has been ready for over an hour now. So with your indulgence, I will ask him to say something from the AU, and then we finish our recommendations. And also, it's going to help us when we do recommendations on peace and security. This is the Commissioner for Peace and Security. So when we make our recommendations, then we'll be alive to some issues. So the indulgence, the virtual presentation, we said not more than 15 minutes. So, Mr. Jacob, can you link Commissioner Bankole, who's ambassador, just to give us his message as part of our closing, but he's going to touch on state of peace and security in 10, 15 minutes before we resolve. Can we move on? Mr. Jacob, please get Commissioner Ambassador Bankole. The floor is yours, Ambassador Commissioner Bankole.
Excellency, President.
Thank you. You can hear me, eh? Sorry, you can hear me, eh?
Yes, I can hear you too.
There was an outcry during the week, a really loudest, that people had a lot of high expectations from your commission on peace and security. Unfortunately, we were told you were at some summit and proceeding to ECOWAS.
Yes, Excellency.
Yes.
Sorry.
I just want you to know that of all the presenters, when it comes to peace and security, everybody pays attention and attends. So anyway, proceed. We are now closing today, but right, proceed.
No, thank you so much, Excellency. I'm very pleased. First of all, let me apologize for the scheduling. But you know that in the peace and security sector, there are so many unforeseen circumstances. But Honorable President, Chief Fortune Charumbira, my dear brother, distinguished members of the esteemed Pan-African Parliament, the African Union through me, we are very pleased to be addressing you today. It is important that we continue to prioritize together peace, security, good governance, and stability. This is our common agenda. We are very sure that you are aware that the multiplicity and the complexity of security threats are real. Our continent is facing like never before, particularly the issues around our African governance architecture and the African peace and security architecture, APSA. They are under severe stress. But we must not lose sight that multilateralism provides us with the greatest norms and principles to protect civilians and to ensure that we all have human security. So let me give you briefly what is the global context. Excellencies, honorable members, geostrategically, the calculations are that the Russian-Ukraine conflict, the Israeli war on Gaza, the climate change impact, all serve as threat multipliers to the challenges of today. How do we address together the root causes, the drivers of instability on a continent? We also need global solutions to our own African solutions. But what is the landscape looking like today? I really want to thank you all for your emphasis to fight together terrorism and violent extremism, rising insecurity, cross-border tensions, climate-induced conflicts, from Lake Chad Basin to Mozambique, from the Sahel to Somalia, to Sudan, to Cabo Delgado in Mozambique, Eastern DRC. These are areas where, of course, the Sahel is a special concern. And I really want to appreciate the work of the Pan-African Parliament, as you mentioned, Niger, the state of former President Bazoum. And please, I will also suggest that you re-echo what the Peace and Security Council has stated as your organ dealing with peace and security matters for this. The immediate unconditional release of President Bazoum, because this is very, very important. Excellencies, we have to work together to silence the guns by 2030. We have only 6 years to go. The Peace and Security Council just adopted the Dar es Salaam Declaration, which also emphasized 20 years of the Peace and Security Council and the next 20 years. So peace is so important for us. All the issues you have discussed today, we have been following, and I want to assure you that without peace, there will be no essence of development. Excellencies, particular of interest to you is the unconstitutional changes of government. This democratic regression has been complex given the political transitions that we witness. We have to work together to save Sahel, to save the Horn of Africa, to save ourselves so that democracy can continue to thrive. What are the principles that must continue to guide us? Shared values, greater commitment to constitutionalism, the rule of law, as well as ensuring that constitutionalism itself is promoted to ensure that it also delivers peace and development. We are working very well on a new revitalized intelligence architecture with the Committee of Intelligence and Security Services, CISA, to make sure that we deliver on early warning, and we also ensure that our aspiration for Agenda 2063 is revitalized. Excellencies, going forward, I want to appeal to you as the President of the Pan-African Parliament and the distinguished members, including the committees, areas of cooperation that we can really deliver together. Our Department of Political Affairs, Peace and Security, we are ready to work with you on early warning and conflict prevention. We have to re-energize the continental early warning system. We are building a knowledge base with the regional economic communities to share experiences on how together we can address this plethora of challenges from Libya to the Lake Chad. Number two, let us work together, Excellencies, to advocate for post-conflict reconstruction and development. We have just approved through the Assembly at last summit a new policy that has 9 pillars, including women inclusion, youth participation, and a collective approach to child protection as well as to climate action. So these are areas where we have to work together so that we can actualize African solutions to African problems. The state of our continent is worrisome, but we must continue to ensure that we are there to promote the interest of Africa. We have just discussed the Summit of the Future in the UN that will take place in September 2024. We have to do that together. Number 4 area will be how can we need the voice of the African Parliament when it comes to financing of African Union peace operations. You all know that the UN Security Council adopted Resolution 2719, which is a popular resolution. But how do we implement that together with the UN so that we can have predictable, sustainable, and flexible financing as we go ahead. Excellencies, one area that you know very well is that we have to advocate for the establishment and full operationalization of the African Standby Force. This is a legal framework that covers all the 5 regions, and it will help us to better prepare to meet the challenges, just like you discussed, the drug control, the issues of women, human rights. This African Standby Force will help us promote all that factor. Finally, our milestones. Mr. Chair, we have been working together very smoothly on promoting and strengthening democratic elections on our continent. We have consistently increased the number of Pan-African Parliament actors in our election observation, but we are running short of resources. But please be assured that we are committed to working with you, to ensuring inclusion, to ensuring that we are in sync with our democratic practice. I really want to wish you well, and I really know that your resolutions are very, very important for the whole of the African continent. That is why we need your support for political transition. That is why the suspended states of Niger, Mali, Gabon, Burkina Faso, Guinea, and Sudan must be welcomed back to the family as soon as practicable, provided conditionally that they return to democratic practice. This is our goal. I want to end by assuring you that we will continue to promote together political inclusive transitions. We have to promote together the solution to Sudan. We will be holding next week in Addis Ababa a particular session on political dialogue with all the actors of Sudan. And yesterday, we also ended in Kampala, Uganda, a session for women from Sudan. We want to hear the voices of women so that the peace that we all crave for in Sudan will come to fruition. I want to assure you that we are working to promote the Tigray process. Somalia, we are providing a new AU mission by end of December. I need your voice, I need your support, and I can assure you that all this will assist us to move forward. Mr. President, it's an honor for me to address you, and I promise that as soon as practicable, we will be able to physically attend your next session. But please be reassured, which I hope we hold in October. Please be reassured that the African Union Department of Political Affairs, Peace and Security, on behalf of the chairperson of the Commission, Musa Faki Mahamat, continues to provide the necessary information and commitment and readiness to work with the Pan-African Parliament. Together, we can build a peaceful, secure, and a democratic, integrated Africa. I thank you, Chair.
Well done. We are clapping loudly. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear the clap. Thank you so
loud
much.
applause. Very, 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 very thunderous, 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 thunderous. You heard that, Ambassador, my brother?
Yes, thank you.
Yes, only there are no questions because you are not in the room. If you were here, we would take another 3 hours of questions and debate. But just to say, inclusion of PAP in some of those initiatives that we hear, where appropriate, say, PAP, send 1 or 2 representatives, also so that when you debate in your chamber, you have someone who or a group that will say, yes, the peace initiatives are going well. They can be observers, not necessarily negotiators. But I think for PAP to observe is good in terms of parliamentary diplomacy. And then for elections, is a hot button here. I'm encouraged that you say you are increasing our numbers. 5 MPs means 1 per region, per caucus, which is a drop in the ocean. I know the funding such challenges, but I know you are a man of capacity also, and very good persuasion skills and negotiation. Please, let's get more funds, involve more MPs in the election observer missions. Thank you very much. Have a good day. We thank you.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you, Mr. President. Always a pleasure to address the Parliament. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, we will move to the next recommendation.
Honorable President, draft recommendation number 5 is a recommendation on the Central Africa Regional Parliamentary Conference on governance, on ratification, domestication, and implementation of African Union legal instruments. The Parliament hereby recommends: A, concerning the flagship projects of Agenda 2063 and the African governance architecture, 1, participants intensify their advocacy and initiate concrete parliamentary actions in favor of the ratification, adoption, and/or implementation of African Union instruments on shared values. 2, undertake necessary legislative oversight and budgetary actions in favor of African Union legal instruments on shared values. 3, define a harmonized framework for its projects and programs to better coordinate efforts towards good governance, peace, and security in Africa. 4, intensify governmental oversight and allocate adequate budgetary resources to implement the flagship projects of Agenda 2063. 5, abstain from any actions likely to threaten or disrupt peace and security in any country, region, or continent, which are essential conditions for achieving shared values and the flagship projects of Agenda 2063, particularly the African Continental Free Trade Area. B, concerning the implementation of the AFCFTA, 1, sensitize their governments to sign and ratify the AFCFTA agreement to facilitate its implementation across the Central Africa region. 2, advocate for the signing and ratification of the protocol to the treaty establishing the African Economic Community relating to the free movement of persons, the right of residence, and the right of establishment. 3, accelerate regional economic growth and strengthen scientific research to address human resource deficits. 4, take legislative oversight and follow-up initiatives to implement the AFCFTA. 5, encourage the establishment of a collaboration mechanism between the CIMAC Parliament and the Pan-African Parliament. 6, fight against cross-border insecurity and develop basic infrastructure to facilitate trade within the sub-region. C, concerning the acceleration of the ratification of the protocol to the Constitutive Act of the African Union relating to the Pan-African Parliament, Malabo Protocol. 1, congratulate the 4 Central African states that have ratified the Malabo Protocol, namely Cameroon, Central African Republic, Equatorial Guinea, and Chad, and encourage the remaining Central African states to ratify the protocol as soon as possible. 2, recommend that the Central Africa Caucus develop strategies and intensify advocacy actions across the 5 remaining Central African states that have not yet ratified the Malabo Protocol. 3, invite parliamentarians to join efforts for increased awareness amongst populations about the Malabo Protocol. 4, exhort parliamentarians to embrace the Pan-African Parliament to popularize the institution amongst the people that they represent. D, concerning dialogue with civil society on the 3 above mentioned issues and the draft legal framework of the Pan-African Parliament Model Law on Gender Equality and Equity. 1, recommend that parliamentarians take into account the specificities and realities of their countries for an effective adoption and incorporation of the Maputo Protocol and other African Union instruments guaranteeing women's rights. 2, exhort Chadian parliamentarians to promote the ratification of the Maputo Protocol by Chad and to encourage the country to formulate reservations to certain provisions of the protocol where necessary. 3, thank all participants, particularly those from civil society, for their active participation and valuable contributions, and express desire to see them participate in future activities targeting civil society, particularly the formulation of model law on gender equality and equity in Africa. And 4, express their gratitude to the government, parliament, and the people of Chad for their support and hospitality, which made the holding and success of the regional parliamentary conference possible. This brings to the end the draft recommendation, Honorable President.
Any debate? Thank you. We now proceed that we have agreed and is adopted. Thank you. Next item.
Honorable President, draft recommendation 6 is recommendation on advancing free movement of persons in Africa. The Pan-African Parliament hereby recommends 1, the African Union Commission to 1, intensify campaigns to raise awareness amongst policymakers, parliamentarians, civil society organizations, and general public about the free movement protocol, focusing on its objectives, principles, benefits, and addressing concerns. 2, implement initiatives to enhance understanding and implementation of the protocol through training programs for policymakers, immigration officials, and stakeholders at national and regional levels. 3, engage with a wide range of stakeholders, including governments, parliamentarians, civil society organizations, and regional bodies through collaborative efforts and dialogue platforms to exchange best practices and facilitate coordination. 4, utilize effectively digital strategies for promoting the free movement protocol. 5, involve goodwill ambassadors, lobbyists, special envoys, and virtual diplomats in promoting and ratifying the protocol on the free movement of persons. 2, the African Union member states to 1, and I'm reading in a correction of numbering, 1, sign and ratify the protocol to the treaty establishing the African Economic Community on the free movement of persons, the right of residence, and the right of establishment. 2, harmonize national laws and regulations with the provisions of the free movement protocol to ensure consistency and smooth implementation, possibly through legislative reforms and collaboration among member states and regional economic communities. And 3, the national parliaments to 1, create national parliamentary networks for advocacy in favor of improving free movement of persons in Africa. This is the end of the recommendation number 6. Honorable.
Any debate? Thank you. Agreed to. Next.
Honorable President, draft recommendation number 7 is recommendation on peace and security in Africa. The Pan-African Parliament hereby recommends 1. The African Union member states to 1. Strengthen democracy and the rule of law in their countries by guaranteeing equitable access to justice for all citizens. 2. Combat poverty and youth unemployment by emphasizing vocational training in line with employment and entrepreneurship. 3. Strengthen national unity and effectively fight against corruption by putting in place accountability mechanisms to ensure that collective responsibility for advancing humanity is prioritized so that financial resources are deployed for the benefit of those who need them the most, and ultimately contribute to alleviating suffering, inequality, indignity faced by many people in African countries. 4. Avoid foreign interference in the management of internal affairs by prioritizing dialogue and mediation with various stakeholders to promote peace and security in their countries. 5. Promote good governance, peace, security, and development in their countries. And 2, to the African Union Commission to 1, strengthen its efforts in fostering peace and security in conflict-torn countries. 2, reduce its financial dependence on Western powers and focus on the use of the natural resources of the continent to finance its programs and projects. 3, provide the Pan-African Parliament with a budget line on peace and security to undertake peace initiatives. This is the end of recommendation 7, Honorable President.
I see Honorable Barakat and then Honorable Amina afterwards.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think that we are tired. That's why we are trying to go very fast. Thank you, Mr. President. As far as the recommendation on peace and security in Africa is concerned, for recommendations as a whole, I think that the draft should be harmonized. For the recommendation concerning the African Union Commission, it says reduce dependence from the West. About that, concerning the recommendation for the African Union member states, the different organs of the African Union need to be funded. If we need to reduce our dependency on the West and external parties, Honorable Amina.
I would like to, if you allow me, one point about point number 2, the recommendation to African Union Commission. I see the whole points are good, but I would like just add the Council of Peace and Security of African Union to call for a two-part and immediate ceasefire in Sudan. Because I'm worried about the situation in Sudan that is getting worse and worse. The ambassador in his online presentation mentioned that their objective in 2030 is to sell the guns in Africa. But from now to 2030, almost 6 years. The people are dying now in Sudan, in other country, but 6 years wait to sign the gun is, I don't know, but it's long. I just wanted if our colleague and the president allow me to add just one point after for Union Commission, like the last one is provide the Pan-African Parliament with the budget line on peace and security to undertake peace initiative. Just to add, call for an immediate ceasefire in Sudan. This is my thing. Thank you. We are talking about wars in Russia, in Palestine, but we are not talking in the wars in our continent. I beg you, please, can we add this point? The situation in Sudan is getting worse and worse. Thank you.
Thank you. You actually have a point, and the heading would be good. But we come back to the issue of being consistent. Once we mention Sudan, then there's also need to talk of other countries that also need to get back to address conflict. Some of them is not conflict. Bankole just now, Commissioner, Ambassador mentioned Mali. We need to call upon those countries as PAP that they need to get back to constitutional democracy. So those who are drafting will mention Sudan and the other areas where there is fighting, and all other areas where there is no democracy or unconstitutional governments at the moment. So can we now agree and adopt? Thank you. We now go to the final, last recommendation.
Honorable President, the last recommendation, recommendation 8, is a recommendation on the zero draft of the revised OAU Convention for the elimination of mercenarism in Africa. The Pan-African Parliament hereby recommends 1. To the African Union member states, 1. To honor their commitments concerning financing the African Union so that it can adequately implement activities such as ensuring peace and addressing cross-border mercenarism in Africa. 2. Review, enact, and implement laws aimed at dealing with mercenaries and related activities and strengthening internal structures for the achievement of that goal. 3, build the capabilities of their national militaries to counter the operations of mercenaries, as well as desist from engaging mercenaries in preference of national militaries. 4, strengthen their security system by creating special forces responsible for combating mercenarism. 5, enforce bilateral or multilateral military cooperation based on the sharing of knowledge to fight against mercenarism. 6, invest massively in their army to strengthen national defense to effectively eliminate mercenarism. To the African Union Commission, rather than committee, to the African Union Commission to 1, expedite the process of reviewing the OAU Convention on Mercenarism, which should provide an appropriate definition and regulations of mercenarism versus legitimate private security industry, and provide enforcement mechanisms to eradicate mercenarism. 2, establish a standby armed force which should come from the African Union member states' troops to fight against mercenarism on the African continent. 3, ensure that the proposed draft protocol also effectively addresses mercenaries that may engage in or be used in cybercrime activities. 4, ensure that the terms used in the proposed draft are defined strictly, given the fact that they fall within the purview of criminal law, which is normally of strict interpretation. And 3, to the regional economic communities, RECs, to 1, adopt protocols regulating mercenarism and related activities, drawing from the process underway at the African Union level in reviewing the OAU Convention on Mercenarism in Africa. Since the end of recommendation 3, Honorable President.
Thank you. Any debates? So we are agreed to and adopted. I want to congratulate honorable members in the chamber. We have gone through all resolutions and recommendations. I think now we go into the phase of closing ceremony and we say bye-bye to each other. So at this juncture, it's fair, please don't leave the chamber and go back and please don't go. You are all blessed by being here. So don't change the blessing structure. But it's only fair that we have entertainment, stand up and stretch your feet. After 5 minutes, we get into the closing ceremony. So standing up doesn't mean going out, but you can go to the ladies, gents, but 5 minutes we are back and seated. We do closing ceremony together. Don't run away, please. 5 minutes, entertainment.
Is it ready? Ready? Okay. Should I go? Maybe still talking. Ready?
Bexabana ngengxoxo bexakwe ingubaxaka hey baxabana oxam bexabana ngengxoxo bexakwe ingubaxaka aw eliqi liqi ngeqingeni belichatha ngekhotha lekude. Aw eliqi liqingeni hey belichatha ngekhotha lekude belichatha ngekhotha lekude belenzani belichatha ngekhotha lekude belenzani belichatha ngekhotha lekude. Good morning, good afternoon. It's after 12. My name is Kanyo Mapumulo, all the way from Durban, Kwamashu, eThekwini, KwaZulu-Natal. Thank you so much for inviting me again. Thank you very much. Thank you. The song that I'm going to sing for you is called Kumbule Kaya. I will need more volume. Just. Kasalwa ikawelo baba mina. Kasalwa idote ni mina. Waya supatomo swaka nageke dale zake. Supatomo swaka nageke dale zake. Washeyo kuzwakhe ngazimiselanga kithi ubaba washeyo kuzwakhe ngazimiselanga khumbula This song is dedicated to all the fathers of Africa. Washiye umuswa kungazimisela. Washiye umuswa kungazimisela. Uya baba wami, uya baba wami, uya. This song is dedicated to women. We all do the song that's dedicated to women. This time it's dedicated to the fathers. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And the last song that I'm going to do is the song that you all loved. It's the song that we all loved. Yes, I would like the kids to come and join me. Secondary school, come and join me. Yes, yes. Song. Because sigalela, sigaleli Africa. My so tomorrow. Sigaleli Africa. My love, so tomorrow. My love, so tomorrow. Look at mom. Look at your mama. She's dancing. Look at me.
Mama, coming tomorrow. It's coming. What's that? It's coming tomorrow. It's coming tomorrow. It's coming tomorrow. What? Round. What's that? What? Thank you so much.
Thank you, honorable members. We can resume our seats. Honorable members, let's resume our seats. Honorable members, let's resume our seats. Order. Senegal. Now, with a lot of jubilation, we move into the official closing ceremony. And may I invite the representative of the South African government, the host country, who have provided us with facilities to host or to meet for the last 3 weeks. Others is 2 weeks, others 3 weeks. Vehicles from airport, moving from hotels, this chamber facilities, the host country, and several other support mechanisms. So may I invite Dr. Ndimeni, and congratulations, you now have a government. You can take the podium. From DECO, Department of, it's a Foreign Affairs Ministry. He's the chief director. I should have mentioned that, very important. He's a chief director, where is it written? It's written somewhere, but it's chief director, international, sorry? Yeah, he's in charge of PAP and Africa issues. Chief director, African Union, in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Thank you. Proceed.
Well, thank you very much, Honorable President, Honorable MPs, and also distinguished guests. I am standing in front of you as a representative of the South African government. I must immediately mention that I am standing in front of you proud that at least we now have a government after delays, which is a government of national unity. And at this juncture, we are still setting up all the mechanisms and the instruments of setting up the government. But most importantly, from the South African government side, I am also happy to indicate that the members of this chamber have been identified, and in the next session, we are looking forward to having them represented in this chamber. I also would like to briefly indicate that for the South African government, the theme for 2024, education and Africa fit for the 21st century, building resilient education systems for increased access to inclusive, lifelong, quality and relevant learning in Africa is timely and is also a very important context for us as South Africa. I must make mention, Honorable President, that the presence of these young children from South Africa who keep coming to this chamber are actually a semblance of the ambassadorial role that they are going to be playing on behalf of the Pan-African Parliament. And I would like to express our appreciation from DECO that this is the way to go. The youth is going to be the focus of this continent. And if you are looking at Agenda 2063, these young school-going children will be resembling a different generation in the year 2063. I also would like to inform that from this chamber, Honorable Majodina has now been made a minister, so I'm sure you'll be proud that your engagement with her is a symbol of success of what the work of the Pan-African Parliament produced in South Africa, and you have a good ambassador in Honorable Majodina. We would like to say, as a host country, we are looking forward to enhancing our role and improving on our mandate as a country. And in this respect, Honorable President, we have approached the Honorable Clerk of the Parliament that we would like to have a retreat so that we look at all the challenges that are facing us in the host country agreement, especially our mandate. And we are going to follow up with the Clerk of the Parliament and the staff in the Pan-African Parliament. As South Africa, I am proud to say that our new Minister of International Relations and Cooperation has come to this chamber. And you'll recall in 2023, he was here to deliver a statement on behalf of the government of South Africa. We will be briefing him accordingly on Monday with respect to the important role that the Pan-African Parliament is doing. We are equally supportive. I must confess here that our former Minister, Dr. Naledi Pandor, when we met with the Pan-African Parliament President, she did make mention that in South Africa, we are fully supportive of the funding, increased funding for the Pan-African Parliament because of the importance of the mandate that is coming from this particular and august establishment. We will be supporting that in the African Union, and we will make sure that resources are adequately allocated to this chamber. In conclusion, I would like to conclude by making the following remarks and use the quote from the late Dr. Nelson Mandela, who said, "Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world." And this quote for us resonates very well with the theme for 2024. And also to mention that during the recent African Union in February, the point was made that this is not a theme only for 2024, but this is a theme for the rest of the operation of the African Union, because education never ceases to be important, especially in the continent of Africa. In these brief remarks, I would like to thank you very much for having supported this particular chamber and also bringing it back to where it should be, and the respect and the dignity of this chamber remains of paramount importance to South Africa. I thank you.
Another loud applause. play. If they are ready. If they are not, see. Yeah.
Ikwihalandela huko ngotwane ikwihalandela kutwanguko ngotwane. Put your hands together like this. Alandela huko ngotwane ikwihalandela kutwanguko ngotwane. Ahebekabele kutapa ahuko ngotwane. Ahebekabele kutapa kutwanguko ngotwane. Ebekabele kutapa ahuko ngotwane. Ahebekabele kutapa kutwanguko ngotwane. Ahuko ngotwane. Ikwihalandela kutwanguko ngotwane. Ngotwane. Ikwihalandela kutwanguko ngotwane. Ahebekabele kutapa ahuko ngotwane. Ahebekabele kutapa kutwanguko ngotwane. Ebekabele kutapa ahuko ngotwane. Ahebekabele kutapa ahuko ngotwane. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Honorable members, I now position myself to deliver the closing speech for this session. As I salute Honorable Masauda, the first Vice President, Second Vice President, Dr. Gayo, who is currently indisposed. He has terrible flu. And those who saw him this morning came to the office, he had a mask to protect himself and others. So, and then Honorable Lucia, as you all know, she would go back. She had a very important engagement with the Prime Minister in his country. She tried to delay a bit, but she had to go back. Honorable Jida is in China on official business. So to that extent, the Bureau is here full 100%. Madam Clerk, our representative from our Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Dr. Ndimeni, I want to say PAP is indeed back to functionality now. PAP is back to functionality now. Following the elections in March, we are back to business. Despite all the challenges we met, it was like we may not meet, but we have to be very, very happy about ourselves that we met. We were here for 2 weeks and we conducted business very well. Can we clap for ourselves? Something that we should know, and this is closing, something that we should go back home knowing is that we failed to meet in May because there was no money. We only met from 23 June because there was no money for the session. But when we met, and this is open to all of you, when we met, we only had 450,000 in the budget allocated. That was the money. Not that any money was, no money was used, but the money that had been allocated was 450,000 instead of 1.3 million. But we met and said something will happen until we finish, and something happened until we finished. We didn't want to fail to meet. The AU now have said they will give us the money. The money is coming late, but at least we have the money. And if we go by the figure that they've said they are giving us, it is 2.6 million, I can now confidently say our meeting has opened 2 more meetings, the committee session and the plenary session. We are going to, now we have the resources. That's very, very important. If we had not met in protest of no money, there would be no money for the other sessions. But when they heard that we are meeting without money, they said, look, we have to do something. We have to do something. And they've released, they are going to give us 2.6 million, which is enough for our committee session and the plenary session this year. And before I go even far, I think our next session, if you plan, of committees, should be somewhere around 17 September. If we miss 17 September, it will be about 24 September. Either we'll meet for a week only. So either the week of 17 September or the week of 21. Either of the 2 weeks. I think we would agree with the Bureau around that time. So when you plan that's around that time, you confirm in the next 4 weeks, before end of July, we will inform you as to when we are holding the committee sessions, so that you have more than almost 2 months to plan. And then the November session, again, no secret about it. I think end of October, the last week of October and the first week of November, around that period, then we can have our session. Because if we delay it to mid-November, most parliaments will be saying we have budget approvals from mid-November to December. So we are avoiding going beyond mid-November. I'm very, very impressed with the change or improvement in this chamber. Dr. Ndimani, you can see that's a bit different in terms of the level of discipline and the decorum. We have improved a lot. The new members may not know. New members may not realize. The way we approved the resolutions and recommendations, at PAP, so peaceful. So peaceful. We allowed each member to give their view. They finished properly without much interjection. And we exhausted all the debates nicely, amicably, as one family. Those who know this parliament, we never did it like that. Those who know this parliament, they'll be, Mr. President, Mr. President, no, sit down. Mr. President, no, I don't agree with that. That was the way this parliament is always conducted. People, and to be honest with you, I was reserving this word. I told you the other day that we have been told in the AU and even at the ministry, and I said I won't mention this word, but now I want to mention it. We were actually told in Addis last month that, you know what, can your parliament be given legislative powers? Such a parliament of hooligans? Just like that, a very bad word. The last time I belonged to a group that was labeled the hooligans in my life is when I was a student in university. Yes, a student, there was a student leader. And the people, everybody said, no, those are hooligans. University students are hooligans. Surely we cannot be in the same category as university students. That would be very bad. But the way we did things this time, no one can now call us hooligans. No one can call us hooligans again. And Honorable Stuki, she really wanted to say something. I said, no, just sit there. And she sat. That is the parliament that you want. When the chair says sit down, you sit down. Well, that's what we did in our national parliament. You don't stand and say, no, Mr. Chair, no, fighting. Then people watch and say, those are hooligans. And that cannot be a continental parliament. And I accept your proposal, actually, that Honorable Stuki, we'll give that to the drafters. This issue about whether you say people with disabilities or people with what? Living with disabilities. So our suggestion was we should invite the drafters, I presume, is Clement, and that no, she's simply saying, can we say people living with disabilities? Sorry? Sorry? Come on the floor, I'll allow you. See, now this is a very more disciplined way. Yes.
Thank you, Honorable President, for considering that submission, because it is better that we use the universally acceptable words, which is persons with disabilities, because the emphasis is on the person and not the disability. Thank you, Mr.
Person, yes, thank you. And adopted. Thank you. So it will be corrected. It will be corrected. But the point that she respected the chair is more important than anything else. That the chair said, we have passed. And she sat down. So we are now rewarding you by correcting again what we could have. But I'm just emphasizing this session, we look united. Let's look for the person who is going to destroy this unity and shame them. And you truly, sometimes let's see who is going to divide us. And we should shame them and name them. We have been too nice, but the parliament is collapsing. This parliament may be closed by the AU if it continues these games of division. They've mentioned it. Others are tired of PAP. People are tired of Pan-African Parliament. After 1 year, closed. After 1 year, closed. After, no. People are telling us up there in the meetings, the foreign ministers and others. Foreign ministers are telling us that no. This whole PAP thing may need to start again sometime in the future. So, but the way we conducted ourselves this time, no one can say that. And I'm happy even my colleague yesterday, Honorable Gayo, stood up and said, now we are united. We are working with the president. We are one team. Take note, that's very important. We have to be united. Any games of any sort, let's expose them. We should be a parliament that is disciplined, rational, or debates in an orderly manner. And when I was at university again, and my professor, Walter Kamba, used to tell us, students would want to make noise and say, no. So the professor, vice chancellor would say, no problem, but let's ensure rational disputation. Even if I don't agree with you, but I have to express it in a very civilized, objective manner. And I think we did, and we should be proud of ourselves. The next message I want to say as we close is that of we have to be reminded as PAP that for us to gather here for 2 weeks, more than 2 weeks, the flights into South Africa, in hotels, South Africa also providing transport in everything, it runs into millions. If we add up the tickets, the flight tickets that the countries bought for you, the per diems they gave you, and what has been put in by the South African government, it runs into millions. So keep asking yourselves, why should Africa be spending millions on PAP? For what? The results issue. We need to measure results. And I'll read a few statements. If you don't measure results, you cannot tell success, the difference between success and failure. Those who say PAP is failing, they don't know the results. So let's project our results as PAP. And then we get rewarded. People reward us for the good things that we are doing. People cannot reward failure. And that this issue of activities, we are not here for activities. We are here for results. As a result, and I'm happy, even the Minister of Foreign Affairs is talking of some workshop. So, in that spirit of making sure PAP is clear with results at a global level of parliament, at the level of each committee, each caucus, even the caucuses, Western, Central, everybody will have to also present a framework for results for a caucus in each committee. And if we have a focus on the results, everybody will respect us. Not to say we want to go. We want a mission. Mission for what results? So that we are clear, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-frame results. Results should be now what we call the mantra. That should be the language. We want to demonstrate results. And we come back to the chamber to show that we are achieving results. Committees that are results-oriented. Of course, in doing those results, we have to synchronize with the AU. You can't have your own results as a committee and end and say, we are looking for this. You should ask yourself, health, because health is close to me, and even gender very close to me here. Education is very close to me. Then we ask ourselves, even the human rights, what are we delivering as a committee? Can we go out there to Africa and announce that our committee has done this for this continent? And the people can clap and say, yes, your committee has done something. The youth on this drugs issue is a serious issue. Please stand up, demonstrate to Africa that the PAP can deliver on this issue of drugs and the rest. And we have to know the language of moonshots, and the moonshots themselves, 7 of the African Union, that's what we've been given. In order to get the money, we need to talk to those moonshots. And the issue of the AGA funds, we are saying we have money, but some committees have not utilized. Please, all committees, can you make sure that we address the issues of monies which are not yet utilized? And the last issue, I'll thank you much, but I want to go to the issue of unity again. Because unity and image. The story is told of a man who has had quite some big number of children. And these children kept fighting among themselves. No unity. Then he asked them all to go out and collect some small pieces of sticks or wood, if you like, but not just like as big as my finger. Bring 5 each, 10 each. They brought them. Then the father said, take one of them like this. You're going to break it easily. And easily, you're going to break. But then he said, can we put all of them together? And then they become a big bunch. And then each one, can you break the bunch? No one could manage to break. And the lesson was, you see, when you are united as a block like this, no one can break you. But when you are divided and each one speaks their language, you can be broken. I will not hide this. I know I can share it with 1 or 2 who speak to me as friends. But if I don't share to all of you, it will be injustice to PAP. This morning, a member of parliament from a country came to me. The country is French speaking. So I had to look for Mr. Morad to interpret. He said, since yesterday, I have a message from my president and my speaker. So he said, no, you know what, our president addressed us before he came and said, please support your president, Chief Chalumbira. Give him a lot of support. Stand with him. Fine. But then he says, but something happened which has worried us, which is that a member of PAP met the speaker of this country, speaker of parliament of this country, and our own member here, who is also French speaking. They met on the flight. And our member went to the speaker of this French country and said, okay, you are the speaker. He said, no, I'm at PAP. But you see, this PAP will never work. PAP, there's mismanagement of everything. The president is bad. Nothing is working. It's a waste of money. True story. Some 2-3 weeks ago, our own member here talking like that. So the speaker then said to this delegation, say, MPs to PAP, look, from what I heard from this other person, why do we even send MPs to PAP? Why should we fund you? So the MPs had to argue with their speaker to say, no, I tell you that's not correct. The president is a good man. There is no mismanagement. There's no whatever theft of money or nothing. But the speaker was like, aye, but the way it was put by this MP from PAP, it's like we should not even send anyone to Pan-African Parliament. So why are we doing this? And I'm not happy. Why are we doing this to our own? Even if you fought politics and maybe the person you wanted lost, surely do we now need to destroy the whole parliament? Do you want the name? Okay. All right. Otherwise, I'm ready to tell you. I'm ready, but you are not ready, so I will not tell you. You are not ready. You are not ready, but that's bad. All I can say, and you know, is a former president of this parliament. And I put it like that and the end there. So we should not do that. We should not do that. Let me thank all of you and the member states who sent you. Tell them that PAP is grateful. The president said we should give you the message that we thank you, Mr. Speaker, for supporting Pan-African Parliament. If you have access to the president, tell him we support you. We are very grateful. We are elected, yes, but when we go to PAP, we represent the continent. So think Africa, all of us. Remember, the world is changed by your example, not by your opinion. What you do counts, and the world will judge you based on that. As I conclude, I want to say, DECO, Foreign Affairs, we look forward to the retreat that you have mentioned. MPs have some issues about some of the services and facilities, but we like the attitude that you are going to convene a retreat. I don't know the composition of the attendance, but there are areas that can only be put across better by MPs themselves. I know you meet secretariat, but please involve at least 2-3 MPs in that particular meeting, because some issues are better articulated by MPs. They affect MPs, not even staff. So include 2 or 3 MPs in that endeavor. I want to thank MPs once more for sitting here up to this time. In fact, we have a larger number this morning or this afternoon than we have had ever before on a closing Friday like this. And I want to thank you. I want to thank you very much. And nobody's even running away. It's going out, I want to let you know you are all here. And the next time when you book flights to return, I want to discourage you from booking a flight on the very day that we are concluding business. Please make it the following day. If you are finishing business on the 5th, go back on the 6th or 7th for that matter, but not to go back on the same day. Now, some have gone back already. Some attended for 2 days, some for 3 days. Some because of financial constraints, maybe they are parliament. Some, they have the money, but they've gone back. It's an issue that we need to look into because you are disabling this parliament. You know, if we are to be very strict about quorum, we may have adjourned on the second day and forget about sitting. So you are killing the legality of the sittings. And I think, Madam Clerk, depending on your record, I think we need to write to Parliament to emphasize the importance of attendance from start to the end. And you are aware in September, your speakers of Parliament are also attending, not the session, but there'll be a side meeting with them, all the speakers. And we'll raise these issues that we need attendance, proper and serious attendance. And some, even at committee level, some don't attend. What's even more worrying is people who want to be chairperson of something, deputy or rapporteur. But they come for 2 days or 3 days and go back. They don't attend the bureaucracies. And let's say thank you to those people who have positions in their committees and they are still around here. And I see from there, from Honorable Mbono, from Honorable Felix, to Honorable Mbo, Yaya, Laila, Rwanda, Egypt, Betin, Mariam. This one becomes a bit difficult for me. Queen, Franco, yeah, but the last, yes, Jean-Marie, Jean-Marie, and Honorable Baja, Steve Mikaya, and where's your? Yeah, where? Oh, yes. Oh, let's clap for them. You are good leaders for Africa. You know, it's corruption if you are elected into a position and when we meet, you are not there. It's corruption. Why did you accept to be in that committee, to be a rapporteur? An absent rapporteur is unfair. So we need to say thank you very much. You are being honest to the people of Africa. And when you are busy, tell us so that you give the seat to someone else. I want to thank our staff, clerk, secretariat team. You did well. You did well. You did very well. This session was much better organized. The issue of documents, I know at some point it's not yet ready, but those who have been here know that it used to be worse than this. And I know you are new with your team. Please, we improve. And lastly, the entertainment. I want to thank your team. And when I call them students, I don't know, pupils, I don't know. The school children. Thank you for being here. The theme for this year supports you. It's about education. So thank you. So lastly, I wish all of you bon voyage. Bon voyage, bon voyage, bon voyage. But this is not to say you go and forget about the president. Every 3 weeks, 4 weeks, you send some text to the president. How are we doing at PAP? What is happening? Just some communication on WhatsApp. Some do, some don't do. So I'm begging those that don't do, please send me some messages. I'm begging you so that we continue communicating. But this is a lovely parliament. I thank you very much. Bon voyage. Okay. Thank you. So next there are some announcements, entertainment, and then we have the anthem, the AU anthem. Then we go.
Honorable President, after the closing of this session, members of Parliament and special guests are invited by courtesy of the Honorable President and his bureau to a finger lunch that will be served in the lobby outside this plenary hall. The second announcement relates to transport. The transport will remain available to MPs to transport you to the airport. Transport will be stationed outside the hotels and will depart 3 hours before each flight. These are the announcements for the day, Honorable President.
Thank you. Yes, proceed. Order. This team is going to lead us in singing the continental anthem, the AU anthem. So we need to rise. Let's stand up.
Let us all unite and celebrate together. The victories won for our liberation. Let us dedicate ourselves to rise together to defend our liberty and unity. Oh, sons and daughters of Africa, flesh of the sun and flesh of the sky, let us make Africa the tree of life. Let us all unite and sing together to uphold the bonds that frame our destiny. Let us dedicate ourselves to fight together for lasting peace and justice on earth. Oh, sons and daughters of Africa, flesh of the sun and flesh of the sky, let us make Africa the tree of life. Let us all unite and talk together to give the best we have to Africa. The cradle of mankind in front of culture, our pride and hope at break of dawn. Oh, sons and daughters of Africa, flesh of the sun and flesh of the sky, let us make Africa the tree of life.
Thank you. Before you leave, I'm personally impressed that children at this level are now singing the AU anthem, and the teacher is praised. Very impressed. Now, we are going to place a bow as we go out. I'll lead you, I'll put something. You just can throw some what, $1, $2, or some rand for these children to share. We'll place some money outside there. So all of you will share it equally with your teacher. We'll place something just now. As we go out, we'll be throwing some money in there. Thank you very much. We adjourn.
Emnandi kama Selimnandi kama Emnandi kama Oh Jesu Emnandi kama Selimnandi kama Oh Jesu Emnandi kama Selimnandi kama lako Oh Jesu Emnandi kama Selimnandi kama lako.
Thank you. The session ends here and we adjourn Synodi. We have no date, but we know it to be September when we meet.